Have you ever noticed how the world gets uncomfortable the moment you say, "I like being alone"? Watch closely. People don't just hear a preference, they hear a warning. They wonder what you're hiding, what's broken, what went wrong inside you. And maybe, just for a second, you wonder that too. What if enjoying your own company isn't strength? What if it's a sign that something is missing? Or worse, what if it means you're slowly disappearing from the world without realizing it? That quiet fear sits in the background, doesn't it? Because if everyone else needs noise, crowds, validation, why don't you? And what does that say about who you really are? Most people don't realize this, but the first 30 seconds of being alone often feel uncomfortable, not because solitude is painful, but because silence removes the distractions that protect us from ourselves. When you sit alone, there's no conversation to perform, no role to play, no mirror reflecting who you're supposed to be. There's just you. And that's where the tension begins. For some, that moment feels like pressure in the chest, a subtle anxiety, a need to reach for the phone. But for others, quietly, almost secretly, it feels like relief. Like exhaling after holding your breath all day. The question is why? Why do some people feel exposed in solitude, while others feel at home there? The answer isn't flattering, and it's not simple, but it reveals something most people never confront. Psychology suggests that people who enjoy being alone aren't escaping the world, they're escaping performance. Social life, for many, is an endless audition, being interesting enough, likable enough, visible enough. But those who gravitate toward solitude often realize something unsettling early in life: approval is expensive. It costs energy, authenticity, and sometimes dignity. So they step back. Not because they hate people, but because they hate pretending. Imagine someone who spends the whole day surrounded by voices, yet feels more unseen than ever. Then imagine that same person sitting alone at night, finally feeling real. That contrast is addictive. But here's the curiosity hook: if solitude feels so honest, why does it scare others so deeply? There's a psychological term that rarely gets talked about outside textbooks: internal locus of evaluation. It means your sense of worth comes from inside, not from applause, agreement, or attention. People who like being alone often develop this early, sometimes by choice, sometimes by necessity. Maybe they learned that external validation was inconsistent. Maybe they were misunderstood one too many times. So instead of chasing reassurance, they built a private world where their thoughts didn't need permission to exist. But here's the uncomfortable truth. This strength often comes from an early realization that relying on others emotionally can be risky. And that realization leaves a mark. Not everyone who enjoys solitude is wounded, but almost everyone who enjoys it has learned self-reliance a little too well. Think about how these people move through the world. They're rarely loud. They don't fight for attention. They observe. They notice patterns others miss, tone shifts, micro-expressions, emotional contradictions. Alone time sharpens that awareness. Solitude becomes a laboratory where they replay conversations, analyze motives, and quietly understand human behavior. This is why many of them seem wise beyond their years. But here's the loop: what happens when understanding people deeply makes you want to be around them less? When you see through the noise, the small talk, the performative kindness, and realize how much of social life is built on fear of being alone? Here's where the story turns slightly bitter. People who like being alone are often told they're missing out. But what if they're actually opting out? Opting out of shallow connections, emotional exhaustion, and constant stimulation that leaves no room for meaning. Solitude gives them control over their emotional environment. No sudden demands. No unspoken expectations. No need to explain themselves. And yet, this control can quietly become a trap. Because when you get too good at being alone, connection starts to feel inefficient, messy, unpredictable. And that's the danger no one talks about. Not loneliness, but numbness. The kind that creeps in when independence turns into isolation without you noticing. There's an emotional peak here, and it's not comfortable. Many people who love being alone don't fear rejection. They fear disappointment. They've learned that expectations hurt more than silence. So they lower the volume on their needs. They become low maintenance, easygoing, fine on their own. But deep down, there's often a quiet truth they don't say out loud. It's easier to miss people from a distance than to be let down up close. That realization hits hard, because it forces a question: are you choosing solitude, or are you choosing safety? And yet, solitude is not the villain. In fact, it's often where real growth begins. Alone time allows thoughts to stretch out without interruption. Emotions rise without being edited. People who enjoy being alone tend to process life deeply, not quickly. They don't react, they reflect. They don't chase meaning, they build it. This is why many artists, thinkers, and innovators crave isolation. Solitude isn't empty for them, it's full. Full of ideas, inner dialogue, and self-discovery. But here's the next loop. What happens when the inner world becomes so rich that the outer world feels dull by comparison? The mistake society makes is assuming that liking solitude means disliking people. In reality, it often means valuing connection so much that you refuse to waste it. These individuals don't want many relationships, they want real ones. Depth over frequency. Truth over comfort. And that standard disqualifies most interactions. The risk, though, is waiting so long for meaningful connection that you forget connection itself is a skill, one that weakens if unused. Solitude can sharpen the mind, but only balance keeps the heart open. So here's the awareness most people never reach: liking being alone is neither a flaw nor a virtue. It's a signal. A signal that you hear yourself clearly when the world goes quiet. But clarity comes with responsibility. If you use solitude to recharge, to reflect, to grow, it becomes power. If you use it to hide, to avoid vulnerability, to escape disappointment, it becomes a cage with no visible bars. The difference isn't how much time you spend alone. It's why you choose it. And maybe that's the real question to sit with tonight, in the silence you secretly enjoy. When you're alone, do you feel more alive, or just more protected?